Welcome, everybody, to the Analyst Desk. It is I, Jacob Orr, the self-proclaimed sports analyst, and I've been gone, but I'm back again. And, of course, I'm joined by Mr. Lane Dashing Dashco, which I gotta say, Lane, I think you live in StreamYard.
Oh, for sure, yeah. It doesn't charge me rent, so it's a good place to live.
Some people say Shrek is love, Shrek is life. That's StreamYard for Mr. Lane Dashing Dashco.
That's right.
So we have an awesome show today. We're going to go over some news that's going on in the CFL, especially from the Toronto Argonauts. We're also going to be breaking down the Toronto Maple Leafs as they have their home opener tonight, plus a shocking take from Lane about the Toronto Blue
Everyone's
Jays.
gonna hate me, but yep.
You know what, Lane? This is a no hate zone, and Dan's
True.
on the road. Hello, Mr. Moore, for your money. Oh, I have to do his two signatures. Woo! And everything is possible. There you go. It's like Dan never left. All I need is Lane. You have the crazy take.
There
We're
you
set to
go.
go.
There you go.
But I'm assuming for people who have been following us on social media to the analyst desk, we're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We will be starting a Twitter account ASAP. But quickly, let's start off with the news in Argo land with Winton McManus being shut down for the remainder of the season. He's been battling an injury pretty much for the majority of, I'd say, after about week 4. And he's been trying to push through it. I mean, give the guy a lot of credit. But at the end of the day, now that your season, let's be honest, these games are just trying to figure out who's there next year. You know,
Yeah.
Winton McManus is not going anywhere, right?
No.
This guy's your cornerstone to the defense. So I think this is a big chance to see about Darkangelo having a chance to be in that position.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that that they're starting to shut guys down. Like, they've officially ruled out Nick Garbuckle for the rest of the season. Now Winton McManus. I wouldn't even be surprised if you see maybe like a good bit, like one of their big receivers there as well. I would be surprised if you start just rolling out the second, third string. It's just trying to see, what you have, what you can improve on, kind of thing. No point just trying to pick up injuries, right?
I agree with you, Lane, and absolutely to more for saying here that you're not going to see these McManus and Lane. I agree with you. I think we're going to start to see some more moves being done on the rest of the receiving core. So time will tell there what the Argonauts are going to be doing, but we'll keep you updated. We know Arbuckle's done for the year. I'd be really surprised if Cokesy or Daniels are back this year. We know
Yeah.
McManus is done for the year. We're just going to have to wait and see who else does get picked up going forward for Toronto. They did bring in a young wide receiver who was drafted by the BC Lions, so let's just wait and see how that goes. But I think now it's time to get to the NHL, and the big thing today is going to be game 1 of the Toronto Maple Leafs regular season. Now, Lane, I'm curious your thoughts on this. Easton Cowan not being in the lineup, but also not being sent down to the Marlies. What's your take on that?
I don't like it. I think it's a weird situation, right? If you're gonna bring a Beast Cowan, why not play him? I don't know what you're trying to do. You're trying to like kill his confidence or something. Like, this is a kid that really needs to play to shine. If I feel like you just gotta play him. I don't know why you're keeping him there. Just be like, well, you could sit on the bench. And I guess maybe watching from afar, they're hoping maybe you can kind of analyze the game from the press box and see that way. But I don't know. I just think he needs to play, and I think he could be on that fourth line really helping out tonight. But hey, maybe the Leafs figure we've got enough depth right now, and we got enough players right now. We don't really need them. But I just think it's weird that you're not going to play him. I just would have put him in the AHL. But that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure yet because I think they want to play him this year. I just don't know if they feel they want him in the lineup the first game of the year against Montreal. Maybe they want him sitting in the press box a little bit. You know what? Practice a bit more with the team, and then maybe you're going to see him. Because, too, remember, we also have Scott Lawton, who's going to be out week to week. So this isn't necessarily the lineup that you're going to be seeing from this team the whole season, right?
For sure.
But I am curious. I want to give my thoughts a bit on this because I've seen the big argument. Is this team better or is this team worse? This team's
Oh,
bigger.
yeah,
The team's stronger.
yeah,
It's, I would say, less offense. I think that's fair to say. Like, I mean, you did lose 100-point guy, but brought in enough players. I think you could potentially replace those 100 points.
yep.
And look, I think this is a team that is still going to be very competitive. I've seen people say, oh, you know what, they're going to, Ottawa and Toronto are going to flip in positions in the standings. You got to remember, you have Florida, who's missing Barkov and Kachuk for pretty much the whole season. So this
Which last
division
game,
right
yeah,
now, in my opinion, is completely wide open for Toronto, Tampa, Ottawa, and even Montreal, if Montreal improves,
I could see
to
Montreal being good.
potentially do what they want to do. So my take on this team is I don't think they're better. I don't think they're worse. I think they're different. I think it's more built to not just try to outscore their opponent every night. Look, they've added a lot of top of the line. They've kept that defense the way it is from last year. So it'll be interesting to see how Carlo and Riley play together in a full season. But I will say this is going to be an interesting game tonight against Montreal, who likes to play hard. They like to play fast. They like to play physical. And seeing the new era of Marcelli for now being on the top line. And Lane, what do you think of Marcelli being on the top line instead of Max Domi? Do you think this is just because Scott Lawton's hurt, so you want Domi centering that third line?
I think so. Yeah,
Or
that's
do
good.
you think, you know what, they went out and got this guy and they're hoping this guy can do kind of what he did with Clayton Keller in Arizona, where he did put up, 60 points?
Yeah, I think it's a little column A, column B, right? Like if you got a injury there, you want Domi more on the third line just to keep that depth, right? Like I know if Dan Moore was here, he'd be saying put Willie Nylander on the first line. I think we both, I think you and me both would disagree with that comment because you don't want to upload too many players on the first line because there's no depth. So you still got to be careful with your depth and spread it out. That's the one thing that the Leafs do have this year is a little more depth that they could kind of spread out their lineup so their further and fourth lines are a little more dangerous than they were in years previously. And no, I agree with Michelli. Michelli being on the first line. You got this guy to maybe not be Mitch Marner, but the thought process is when you play with McDavid, you pick up points because you're playing with McDavid, right? You could put anyone. I could be playing with Connor McDavid, and I'd probably would pick up 40 points because he would bounce the puck off my body, lying on the ice, and get an assist off of me. And the theory is you could do the same thing with Austin Matthews, right?
Yeah.
When you have those premier players like a Matthews, like a McDavid, like a Crosby, like an Ovechkin, you can kind of put someone who puts up 30, 40 points and turn him into an 80-point guy because of that talent that can elevate him. And I think that's what they're trying to do. They know that Nyes and Matthews have a good chemistry going. Where if this guy can just literally pass the puck, everyone's make one or two good passes in the forecheck zone to one of these two studs, that he's going to pick up points left, right, and center. And I think that's the thought process.
Exactly. And when you look at the lines here, you can tell that Berube is looking for scoring from at least your top three, if not all four lines, right? Like your top line with Nyes, Matthews, and Marcelli, to
That
me, is
third line is
very similar
disgusting.
to that Bertuzzi, Matthews, Domi line, where Matthews had his career year at 69 goals. Then you go down to the second line with McMahon, Tavares, and Nylander. I mean, if McMahon can hit 20 goals again, Tavares hits 30, and Nylander's around those mid 40s again, that's a pretty solid second line. The third line is where
That
I think eventually we're going to see some changes because I don't know about Nick Robertson staying on this
honestly,
team the
I
whole
like
season.
that line. I think it's kind of disgusting.
I mean,
That's a
I think that third
gross
line
third
could be
line.
great. It could be great
In
with
theory,
Dakota
that
Joshua, Max Domi, and Nick Robertson.
those
Like,
are
you
two good
have
forward checkers.
speed.
A guy who can score. He can score. We've
Well,
seen
that's the
it.
thing. You know what? And I think Nick Robertson in consistent ice time probably can get 20 goals a year, right? So if you have Robertson, Domi, and Dakota Joshua, I think you're hoping Dakota Joshua kind of becomes your Sam Bennett. I'm not saying he is to the same caliber as Sam Bennett, but you're hoping that he becomes your Sam Bennett on this unit. So look, like I think this is a lineup that screams depth. And I know, Lane, I get what you're saying, what Dan would say about Nylander to the top line. But if you put Nylander to the top line, now all of a sudden that second line isn't so deadly. I think you want
Yeah,
Matthews to drive one line, Nylander to drive another.
for sure. And The problem was, I think, deep down was you really needed the least really needed was the three guys to drive the three lines. Like really, ideally, you needed Matthews to drive a line, Marner to drive a line, and then Tavares to drive a line. But they never really could do that. And I think maybe with more depth and more spread out, you can kind of do those. There are certain things you can kind of do. I still think the first two lines are kind of top heavy, but I think you're starting to see that with the depth that they have. Like you don't even have what's his name, the, the
Scott Laughton.
Scott Lawton in here, and that's another guy he's not a big goal scorer, but he can drive a line, right? So
And Dan, I see what you're saying. Nick Robertson could get 20, but that's the thing. So when Scott Laughton's back, you're basically, I think there are two spots and three players fighting for him. I think Robertson, Yarncroke, and Cowan
even
are.
McMahon,
I don't see McMahon coming off this roster unless his playing really starts to deteriorate.
kind of
Like he had
bad.
20 goals last year, and if he can continue that 20-goal pace, I don't see it. And Dan, yeah, you are calling it at the desk. That absolutely, I think Nick Robertson could be a 20-goal scorer, right? And I think that's the hope. But can he be a 20-goal scorer while being defensively responsible and playing physical enough to be on a third line? That's the $1 million question, which is where I could see once Scott Laughton is healthy, I could see Laughton, Domi, and Joshua as a third line, and then Robertson going down to the fourth line with Waugh and Lorentz. And then it would basically be Robertson, Cowan, and Yarncroke fighting for that last spot on the fourth line.
Yeah.
Right, because as you can see here, there's no David Kemp. He was not picked up on waivers, so he will be playing for the Toronto Marlies this year. I was a little almost surprised that he was just dumped on a waiver. I think the Leafs were just trying to dump his salary because at the end of the day, he just isn't. There's nowhere to put David Kemp in this lineup.
No.
I honestly thought, oh, Scott Laughton, sure, you'll see David Kemp on this lineup. But you know what? Now I look at the lines, I'm like, I don't know where I would put a David Kemp. I'm not going to take off Calle Yarncroke to put on a David Kemp because Yarncroke can do more than Kemp can do right now. And Mr. Morfor is saying Bobby
Whoa.
McMahon for 25. You know what, though? If he gets consistent second line ice time, remember, he got 20 last year playing between the second and third line. He gets consistent second line ice time. And if that second line contributes the way it can, I could. The only thing is with McMahon, I wonder if his assist tallies might go up more. Maybe not so much as goals. Like, is he going to be the guy in the corner that's using his size to go get the puck to get it to Nylander and Tavares, the two high skilled players? And if McMahon is, let's say McMahon has a slow start, do you see Dakota Joshua going up on that second line to do
I
that
could see it,
exact
yeah,
thing?
for
I do.
sure.
But I mean, the forward group, I think it's going to be. I think the first line's a trial run. It's going to be kind of see how it goes. I personally, when they got this Marcelli, I thought he was going to go on the top line.
Yeah, and
That's what
everyone,
I thought from day one, and that's where he's going as of right now.
and
But let's say you're 2 weeks in, he hasn't done much, then you're probably seeing Max Domi going up to that line and hoping by then that Scott Laughton's healthy and you can put Scott Laughton where Max Domi is.
yeah, and everyone's forgetting that when with Michelli, right? Everyone's forgetting that Shane Doan, who actually drafted Michelli, is one of the ones that got him to get going. Like when he was with the organization, he was the one who actually got Matthias Michelli going. And when Shane Doan was let go, that's when Michelli's points sort of dropped off. So Shane Doan, who now works with the Toronto Maple Leafs as an assistant GM, he actually knows a lot about Matthias Michelli, and he knows what makes him work, what works with them, right? So even though I know Dan would say that Michelli is not that good and he's a 20-point player. I could disagree because I think that Shane Doan actually knows where to put this guy in a lineup that can get this guy points.
Well, and the thing is, with that, we've kind of seen both sides to that coin. Last year in Utah, in 55 games, he only had 18 points. But the year before in Arizona, in 82 games, he had 57. The year before that, he had 49 points in 64.
But that's what I'm saying. Shane Doan wasn't with him with the 18 points.
Exactly. So you wonder, and also, too, his ice time went down significantly in Utah versus what it was in Arizona. Went from 13 minutes a game to 16 minutes a game. So obviously he wasn't playing with the same level. Maybe, who knows, if he could get 49 points over 64 games in playing with Clayton Keller. It's not unrealistic to think he can't get 70 points in 82 games with Austin Matthews. That's not unrealistic.
Not.
So they only traded a third round pick for him. I thought it was a phenomenal trade because it just gives you somebody else to, potentially bring in some scoring. And yes, Dan, we will see who's right at the analyst desk. But I'm just kind of looking at it here, and I think he just adds potential of scoring, and you didn't give up much for him. Mind you, if he does have a breakout year, his contract's up this year, so he could be a one-and-done player in Toronto. Could
I
be
don't think
going
so.
in down as one of the better one-hit wonders in Leafland. But since we're talking Leafs, Mr. More for Your Money did send us a vidya. So I haven't actually watched it yet. So let's hope he doesn't say anything too
Uh-oh.
crazy. And let's see one of his takes for the Leafs this season.
Hey everyone, Dan Moore, More for Your Money here at the Analyst Decks. I'm sorry I can't join you live today. As you know, I'm taking Seneca Sports Marketing at Seneca York here. So I'll be in class during this live episode, but I thought I'll give you a quick video. Jacob asked me to talk about any subject I want. We're not going to talk about the Blue Jays because that was pretty depressing last night, but they will come back and win tonight, wrap up the series. I'm not going to talk Argos either because they are eliminated from the playoffs, so I'm not going to talk about them anymore. So we're talking about the Leafs. That's right. Go Leafs, go. And Jacob said I could talk about any subject about the Maple Leafs. So what I'm going to talk about is them not re-signing James Reimer. They signed James Reimer to a professional trial contract, and I thought it was a good contract. I thought for Server I'd keep him. They did not. They picked up Primo off waivers instead. And I think it was a bad move letting Reimer go. Not because of goaltending, but I think it's because of veteran leadership. You look at this Maple Leaf team in the past 10 years or so, they also had a veteran leader. They've had Jason Spezza. They've had Patrick Morrow. They've had Joe Fulton. They've had Mark Giordano, and most recently, Max Pacioretty. This offseason, they did not bring back Pacioretty because of all the Mitch Marner debacle. And they did not bring anyone, in my opinion, to replace anyone of that veteran leadership. No fourth line forward, no 6th, 7th deep defenseman. And I think James Reimer could have been that veteran leadership in the dressing room. Not that you're going to play him 20 games or anything like that, but just be in the leadership, be there for the guys, and no one, in my opinion, has done that. So I want to see what Mr. Jacob and Mr. Dasco think about what I have to say on James Reimer. What do you guys think? You can join in the comments too. Go Leafs, go! Woo!
So when we hear from Dan, first of all, you guys got to see a treat. Dan Moore without a hat. That does not happen very often. He threw his
He was
hat
wearing a
away.
hat. Oh, after, yeah.
But the goaltending for as of right now is Anthony Stolarz, who is getting the start tonight, not surprised, and Caden Primo. Personally, I think cutting James Reimer after watching the little bit of action he got against Detroit, I think was the right decision. Because you also
Same.
have Joseph Woll, who will be back at some point, even though we don't know when yet. And Caden Primo's a younger guy. And to remember, Joseph Woll's contract, I believe, is up either this year or next. So
Yep.
you may need to be looking for a different backup, and you just don't know about Dennis Hill to be yet. Right? So I get what Dan's saying about the leadership. I really do. But I feel you have a lot of leadership in Brandon Carlo and Morgan Riley and John Tavares. Like I
Lawton,
and
Waugh.
Scott Lawton, Nicholas Waugh. You have guys who won Stanley Cups and been on runs. This Leaf team itself now, they're not a young team anymore. You have
No.
Austin Matthews in his prime, William Nylander in his prime. You have Matthew Nyes, who has now been through 2 playoff runs with the Leafs. You have Brandon Carlo who's won the Stanley Cup. You have Nicholas Waugh who's won a Stanley Cup. Yeah, when you're talking about Patrick Marleau and stuff, Patrick Marleau, back then that team was young. When Jason Spezza was here, that team was young. And I'm just going to say it didn't help.
Nope.
So you can't have players in your lineup you're not confident to play. Look at Ryan Reeves last year. Sure, people say he's great in the dressing room. Well, he needs to be good on the ice, right? And if you want to bring in those people in the front office like they did with Mark Giordano or to the coaching staff, that's one thing. Like, look at the Saskatchewan Roughriders who hired Andrew Harris to really help AJ Ouellette find his game. But
Right.
again, they hired him as a coach. They didn't ask him to play running back when he just isn't at that professional level anymore. I think that's why with James Reimer, I think he probably does not want to play in the AHL at this stage of his career, and the Leafs don't feel he's an NHL goalie once Joseph Woll was back. Caden Primo, you know what? He's probably a guy that you can put in the AHL,
Yep.
right? So, what are your thoughts on that, Lane?
I totally agree. It's one of the things where, like, if you don't think you're gonna play him, then don't sign him, right? It's one of these things where, and there's not to say that he might not still join. I think there was something about he was just looking to see if there's any better offers, and he still might sign on as a AHL third goalie. There's been some rumors that he still might sign as like an AHL starter kind of backup if there's no better offers. But I kind of agree with what you're saying. There's no point really keeping a guy who's probably not going to play if they don't really see a fit for him. And maybe there's some bad juju there too, right? You got to go back. James Reimer was here for some bad kind of years too, with disappointment in Game Sevens, and I think they're trying to get away from that. And you kind of don't want to keep bringing back the past. You want to move to the future, I should say, and move on and try to try to get rid of this whatever it's juju, whether it's an atmosphere, whether it's something in the air, whether it's the water they drink. They gotta try to just get rid of it. Try to get rid of that sort of like that thought process. And I think just moving on to a newer guy, getting someone who's not related to that drama, I think could also be a better thing too.
And I'm going to say it too. Caden Primo's young. He's a guy that maybe turns out to be a good situation. Look with the Montreal Canadiens when they picked up Montembeault off waivers, right? They picked up a goaltender that no one ever expected to do anything. And look, he made the Four Nations face off. He didn't play any games because Jordan Binnington just stole the show. But I mean, it's a guy that made Team Canada. It's a guy that has really surprised people, right? So maybe you get the same situation with Caden Primo, who I thought got a bit of a bum rap in Montreal. I thought he played some good games there, had one or two bad games, got another guy from the HL in Dobis, and he never really got a shot again. So I'm not totally against it. But it's interesting when you bring up about James Reimer in the past. So how do you feel about a lot of people rumored that Morgan Rielly was going to be off this roster? We both kept saying that's not going to happen because, well, he has a no move and doesn't want to go anywhere. Morgan Rielly's the only player left from that era.
Yeah, he is.
And Morgan Rielly is on your top defense. I mean, people argue, is it the Rielly, Carlo, or is it the McCabe-Tanev pairing that's the top? To me, it's 1A and 1B.
Yeah, it doesn't really
One that's
matter.
more defensive, one that's more offensive. But, you still have Rielly, Carlo, McCabe-Tanev, OEL, and Benoit. I'm actually, and Philip Myers as well. I'm quite content with the defense the way it sits.
Same.
I think Benoit's just going to keep getting better. And OEL's another one. We talk about veteran leadership. This is why, again, I don't think they needed James Reimers for his leadership. OEL's won a Stanley Cup. I'm set a Grey Cup. You can tell I'm still thinking CFL most of the time. But, yeah, you know what? I'm looking at this, and truthfully, we've been calling out, and I see Dan saying he believes Carlo will have a great year.
I agree with that.
I'm calling this. Morgan Rielly is going to get back to his pace that got him this contract.
I hope so.
You're going to have him run the power play now. You have him with a consistent defensive pairing for 2 straight seasons in a row. That has not happened to him in a very long time. And you have him with another defenseman in Brandon Carlo, who I feel was up to his caliber of defenseman. I'm sorry, but so many times you played Morgan Rielly with other players who were just terrible.
Yep.
So now you have Morgan Rielly, who is on a consistent guy with Brandon Carlo. We'll go over the power play lines in a minute. But like, Lane, do you see what I'm saying? That maybe this is the year that Morgan Rielly gets it going again in the playoffs. He did have 7 points in 13 games. He's actually been very good in the playoffs in recent years. And in his career, actually, he's a plus 12 with 47 points in 70 career playoff games. But do you see him maybe getting back to where he was back when he put up 68 points in 21-22, or where he scored 20 goals in 18-19 and 72 points? Do you maybe see him getting maybe not quite that high as he's gotten older, But do you see him maybe getting back up there, or more it's like the 45, 50 assists again?
I could see, Morgan Riley. He's like you said, he's kind of a weird player, right? Like some seasons he really excels and puts himself in a conversation to be a first line defenseman, and there's other seasons where he looks like a second pairing guy and looks like he's overpaid and looks like he's way overpaid and he shouldn't be making the money. And he's had a weird career where there's moments where he's been playing with some players that have not been up to his level, and you're not sure if it's Morgan Riley who's ruining the reputation of him or if it's the other guy. But then you've put him with Chris Tander, and unfortunately that didn't work. And
No.
it's hard to find. Morgan Riley feels like a guy he needs to find the right guy to play with him, and the Leafs have really struggled since they got him to find that guy.
Well, unfortunately, they had that guy in Luke Shen, and they didn't keep him because that was the time between Dubas and Tree Living. There was no GM. And unfortunately, Luke Shen signed in Pittsburgh. Now he's out in Smashville. But yeah, he's in No, he's not in Nashville. He's in Winnipeg now. I apologize. But you're really hoping that Brandon Carlo and Morgan Riley, was that pairing started to look good towards the end of the year and into the playoffs.
It did.
So you're really hoping that this pairing will get going, right? That they're gonna kind of be that they can kind of drive the offense for the defense. And you know what? The rest of your pairing, McCabe and Tanev, is 100% your shutdown pairing. This is the pairing that I think is going to block the most shots, most hits, see them a lot in the penalty kill. And then OEL and Benoit, look, a lot of teams, that's your second pairing and not your third pairing. So for the first, last year it was pretty solid too, but this is the first time in a long time you look at the Leafs defense and in my opinion, you're very content with it. You feel very confident that this is a good group that can make plays.
For sure, I agree with that. Yeah. I think it's a good defense. I think it's a good forward group. Like, it's really not that much different outside of Mitch Marner. Like, really, when you really.
Well, the thing is, though, you lost Marner to bring in Marcelli, Joshua, and a potential rise of Easton Cowan. So it's kind of like, we see it in other sports too, where sometimes you have to make that one big move to bring in enough depth pieces, right? I'm going to use a CFL example because I love to. You look at the Toronto Argos this year. Unfortunately, now no one could have predicted that Chad Kelly wasn't going to play this year, but because you paid Chad Kelly so much, you couldn't fill the holes in the rest of the roster. The Leafs have tried the core four for way too many years, and they had an opportunity to move on from it, and they have, and instead now you have a much deeper lineup where you compare this lineup to last year, that the third and fourth lines, you used to look and be like, oh boy, if someone gets hurt, we're in trouble. Now you're looking, okay, if someone gets hurt, you can bring in Easton Cowan. Scott Lawton's going to be healthy soon. You can call up David Kempf. You have that Quinley from the Marlies, who I think is going to be a really good player very soon, right? So like the Leafs actually have depth. But the $1 million question, and Lane, I'll only charge you a nickel because I know you don't have $1 million. I'm hoping you have a nickel.
Maybe.
But the big question is the power play, right? That is what everyone's wondering. Because Mitch Marner, if you look, a lot of his points were power play points. So here's the top unit power play. You have Nyes, Tavares, Nylander, Riley, Matthews. So you have Matthews in probably more of a bumper position, even though they have it as a defenseman, right? So Morgan Riley is the Nick Arbuckle. He's the quarterback. He leads the ship on the power play. Morgan Riley's best season, he had 27 points on the power play. Last year, he had 14 and only one power play goal. Yeah, his best season, he had 21 power play points and 3 power play goals. And that's when Morgan Riley was winning the top unit. And actually, it was William Nylander who didn't make it on the top units back then. He was on the secondary unit. So what do you think about this power play, Lane? I think if you're going to say there's a decrease somewhere, it could be the power play, as much as I think Morgan Riley's more than capable to run it.
Again, though, I don't necessarily, I know everyone's saying that, but I don't necessarily think that because the power play was very stale, right? Again, the power play was...
It was hit and miss last year.
It was literally just, I'm Mitch Marner, I'm going to pass to Matthews. I'm Mitch Marner, I'm going to pass to Matthews. Everybody knew it was going to happen. I think this power play is actually, I can't believe I'm saying, I think it's better because there's more options and not no one's scared to make a play here. I feel like everyone can make a play. Everyone's got that ability to score here. I really think that power play got stagnant because it was just Martin and Matthews, Martin and Matthews, Martin and Matthews, and people were just like, well, okay, we'll just protect Matthews, and then the power
Mhm.
play would end up in the back. You'd end up trying to fish the puck out of your zone for half the time.
Now, the power play last year is at 23.95%, which was higher than the league average, which was 20.98%. But the way you're saying, Lane, so you don't think you're going to see a dip in percentages, or do you think it's just going to be, even if we see a dip, it's going to be less streaky? It's just going to be a little more consistent than every 10 power plays you'll get at least two, you'll get 2 goals, versus last year there'd be sometimes over 10 power plays you wouldn't score a goal, and then your next 10 you'd score 4. Is that more what you're saying? You think it's going to be like around the same percentage, just more consistent? Or do you think this unit might even be a little better?
Yeah, I could. It just really depends on how they play, right? But I could definitely see it. Yeah, for sure.
See, I'm calling for more consistent. It might even drop a couple percentages. Like if they can still keep the power play around 20%, I'm happy. But I think it's going to be more consistent. Where when the Marner Matthews combination on the power play, when it worked, it was unstoppable. But when it didn't work, they didn't pivot, right? They kept trying to force the same 2 to 3 plays. Where I think with Morgan Rielly, he's going to be more the type that if the passing lanes aren't there and he's got Nyes and Tavares in front of the net, he's just going to take a wrist shot and look for a deflection. Where Mitch Marner wasn't that kind of guy to do that. So it really depends how the power play coaching has changed from last year to this year to use this unit in a different way, where maybe it is more shoot first, pass second, even though, like, I mean, you look like this unit can still score a lot of power play goals with Nylander, Tavares, Nyes, Matthews, and Rielly, right? It's not like this is a bad power play unit whatsoever. And what I'm really curious about is, does the second unit get a little more action? This is where I'm not too sure about how much it gets used. I'm a little surprised to see no Nick Robertson on this unit. These are the lineups from Daily Faceoff, which is usually pretty accurate. So I'm a little surprised to see no Nick Robertson on the power play. Like, Lane, what are your thoughts on the second unit? Do you think this is a unit that maybe only gets like 20 seconds?
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I don't think they're going to get much time at all. I really don't.
I mean, it's a unit that sure, it has some, I mean, you know, Bobby McMahon's a 20-goal scorer. Max Domi's a great passer. But that's the only thing you do wonder. Could we see down the line, do we maybe see Tavares and Domi switching power play units to try to give balance so you can actually use both units effectively?
For sure, yeah.
I don't know, but I think though when we look at the power play, it is certainly going to be PP1 heavy and not so much PP2, because Nicholas Waugh, I don't know, it's not that's where maybe Easton Cowan in the lineup versus a Yarncroak could come in handy, because then Easton Cowan can be on that second power play unit instead of maybe Nicholas Waugh. All he needs someone to win the face-off.
Right.
So, Lane, but if you're going to take someone off that second unit and put someone else on, who would you consider? Like, would you agree to me and a Nicholas Robertson, maybe a Dakota Joshua? Like, who are you thinking more you would like to see on that line? And if you do, who do you take off?
You could maybe, like, it's tough to say, right? If Easton Cowan gets in there, that's a guy I would like to see on the second power play unit.
And then, so if you take him off, are you moving Domi to center and taking Waugh off the power play?
I may take Domi off, actually.
Really? Because the only thing is, I guess if you have Marcelli and Domi, you don't really need both of them on that unit. So maybe you pick one.
Yeah.
See, I would say either Domi or Marcelli comes off, and I'm putting Nick Robertson on just for his pure shooting ability.
Just his skating scares me.
Robertson's a decent skater.
Well, I know he's not. No, he's not.
He can skate better than me.
That's true. He skates like this. I don't know why. I don't know. He skates really weird. I don't know what it is with his strides.
Now, remember, too, this is your game one lineup, so things can obviously change. But something that no one's really talking about with the Mitch Marner going away, everyone's talking about the scoring, right, and the offense. Mitch Marner, as love him or hate him, and whether you like the decision or hated the decision, was on your penalty kill.
Yeah.
So now your penalty kill, it looks a bit different, right? So when we go to the first penalty kill unit, again, all these are by daily face-off here. Austin Matthews, Matthew Nyes, McCabe, and Tanev. The McCabe and Tanev, I understand. I'm a little iffy on Matthew Nyes being on PK1.
I'm not surprised. I think he can do it. I think he's got this.
I'm not saying he can't do it, but look, I'm old school. I don't like my top liners killing penalties. I didn't like it last year. I still don't like it. I think you have your bottom six, and that's their job. But I understand this can create more shorthanded goals, but it can also create... Do you really want Austin Matthews being out 6 weeks of a broken hand because he blocked a shot on a penalty kill?
No.
That's my dilemma about it. But this is the way the NHL has gone in the new era. So normally, here's where it would be a difference, though, because you would normally see Marner with Matthews on the top penalty kill.
Or Kemp, really.
Or Kemp. David Kemp was a huge penalty killer, and so Scott Laughton when he comes back. So maybe that changes. But what do you think? What do you think of that first PK unit, Lane?
I don't hate that at all. I think it's more than competent to do the job. I think it'll be just as good, to be quite honest. I think it's fine.
You and Dan both like it. I'll be honest, I don't. I would have, if you're going to go Matthews, I would have put like a Dakota Joshua out there instead.
Yeah, but you're paying Matthew Nyes to be the big guy now.
Yeah, but I don't want to pay him to block shots. I want to pay him to score 30 goals.
You can do both, though.
I get it. It's just, again, what happens if... The way this lineup is set, it's less star power, more depth. So why are we using the star power in the depth position? That's kind of all I'm saying. I would prefer to see... I don't like Matthews or Nyes killing penalties because they block a shot, they get an injury, they're out, and now all of a sudden you're trying to use a role player to replace Austin Matthews, which that does not work.
True.
So you and Dan both like it. I do not, but we're allowed to have different opinions. You can use that. You don't gamble with bet knows. I don't even know what that is. But now the second PK unit. This is more what I look at from a PK unit. Right? It's Lorentz, Yarncroke. These are your guys that I want killing penalties.
Now, I could be maybe I'm crazier. I think this unit will get more time than the Matthews. I think this is actually going to be like the one that plays the most of it.
Probably, in all honesty, you're probably going to see this lineup being used more effectively.
I would have liked Joshua over Yarncroke, though.
Now, the only thing I wonder, as much as Daily Faceoff isn't showing it, are you going to have a third penalty kill unit? Let's just go back up to the forwards here with a quick little skibbity bebop, or as the young kids say, a quick little 6-7. Still don't understand what that means. But, and do you maybe, I'm a little surprised, do you maybe see a third one with Nicholas Waugh and Dakota Joshua as like a third penalty kill unit?
I can see it if it's a long one or 4 minutes or 5 minutes. Yeah, I can see
or
that.
Like a lot of penalties back to back to back in a row, right?
Yeah. Even a McMahon, too.
Yeah, I mean, and you do wonder, will we see more... Again, a new era of penalty killing is not leaving the same guys out for a long period. They clear the puck, you change. So, as much as it isn't like this on Daily Faceoff, maybe we see... It'll be interesting to keep track of that tonight to see, do we see more penalty killers down the road, right? And so... The only other thing we've kind of touched about a little bit, but is goaltending with Anthony Stolarz and Caden Primo. I don't know about you, Lane. I was almost a little surprised it's Caden Primo as the backup and not Dennis Hildeby.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Hildeby had a really good, from what I've read, had a great camp. He played some good preseason action. And people say, well, I mean, including myself, well, preseason doesn't really count. Well, but that's what we have to evaluate right now. Unless they just do they want Hill to be playing for now in the Marlies, and then maybe because he's a two-way contract, you can just
for sure
bring him up and down, right?
For sure.
So when is the Marlies' first home game? Do you know this, Lane? Like, or their first game? I can look it up. I'm just putting you on the spot. But
I don't know when the Marlies. I know they start relatively soon around this time because everything but the
their
NHL.
home open, so their first game is Friday,
There you go.
and then their home opener is Saturday, October 11th at 4 p.m. So unless this is one of those things, because the Marlies have back-to-back games, they want Hill to be down there, but then maybe, by later on, maybe we see... Actually, the Marlies have a lot of back-to-backs to start the year. Because they have like the 10th, the 11th, 18th, 19th, 25th, 26th, 29th, which I know it's not back-to-back,
Wow.
but that's a lot of games. And then the 1st, 2nd, and 5th of November. So maybe they just feel like we need Hill to be down there to eat up those games.
I can see that.
But I do think, though, you're going to have to see Caden Primo in the net soon. I don't like the idea of playing Anthony Stolarz a bunch of games early on in the year and again risking an injury. Because the Leafs play today, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. You're going to see another goal. You're not going to play Stolarz 4 games in basically a span of like 5 days.
No, probably not. No.
Well, if you do, you're an idiot. And I don't think Craig Berube is an idiot. So my question is, Lane, do you think Caden Primo gets one of these starts, or does Dennis Hildeby?
Probably Caden Primo.
Or do you go Stolarz tonight, Caden Primo on Saturday? If he doesn't look great, then do you go Hildeby on either Monday or Tuesday?
Could do it.
Probably the Tuesday game against Nashville.
Yep, you could definitely do that.
So maybe this is, look, Primo's got more NHL experience. Let's get him in here. Let's see what he can do. But if he has an off game early, and yes, we all know we're talking Leafs and we're talking the battle of the third string goaltenders. But because we all know Joseph Woe is going to be,
For sure. And how
the number 2 once he's healthy. And some people argue he should be the number 1 goalie. I'm not one of those people who argue that personally. I think Anthony Stolarz is your guy. You just signed him to a very team-friendly contract extension.
Yeah, I love it.
I love that contract wholeheartedly. I think it's brilliant. But all I mean is I'm just kind of curious to see here, how does the goaltending situation play out? Because surprisingly for Toronto, interdivision games are so important, and you have 3 interdivision games in your first 4. So it's going to be a great way to set the tone early that without Marner, this team is still going to be very good. If you win, let's say you win all those divisional games against Montreal and Detroit, then all of a sudden, right, you're starting to look a lot stronger.
For sure, yeah. I agree.
Dan, I'm thinking I have to pull back in the archives and find that After All, You'll Blame Joseph Wall's song, because you're already saying that he's at backup at best. And look, the thing is, if Joseph Wall, I would call him an adequate goaltender, right? Like, he's certainly not a superstar, but he's not terrible. He's not bad either by any means, right? Like, he's a solid goaltender. I would say this: the Edmonton Oilers would be happier than a pig and poop to have a Joseph Woe in net, right? So, look, I think the Leafs goaltending as well. I think they're in a pretty decent spot right now. Anthony Stolarz is coming off a strong year. Yes, an injured year, but I mean, you look at his last couple years between Florida and Toronto, his numbers have been great. Some people argued in Florida he should have been the starter over Bobrovsky. Again, I wasn't one of those people who argued that, but
I think he'll be fine.
I'm not concerned. My only concern would be I just don't want to overplay Stolarz even this early in the year. Like, I'd rather lose 2 out of those 4 games and play a backup and play someone else in those games.
Yeah, for sure. I get what you're saying.
That's how I feel. But Lane, so when you're looking at this team as a whole, we've broken down the offense, we've broken down the defense, we've broken down the goaltending. Is this team better, worse, or the same?
Well, I honestly, we're gonna have to see, but I think it's better because, again, I don't know. Again, all I can say is from what I heard. I've never been in that dressing room. I want to make this clear. I'm not an inside source. I'm not a reporter. I don't sit there and hang out with the boys after the game and drink Kool-Aid. But from what I've heard, Mitch Marner was a big problem. And Craig Berube sort of said, without saying it, that look, when things went bad, there was only a few guys I could really talk to. One of them isn't on the team anymore. That to me tells me a lot. That means that, when things were going bad, he couldn't go to Mitch Marner and say, hey, boys, the game's getting tough. Let's go play. And again, I'm going to say it because it just seems like his character. I think Mitch Marner is a big baby. I think he's a big crybaby. I think he's not built for tough situations. I think he likes it easy. I think he likes it when everything's going well. He's happy, but the minute anything difficult happens or sort of anything sort of throws him off his game, I think it really sends him into a frenzy. You notice in the regular season when he's getting 100 points, everything's great. But the minute the postseason, the pressure, the tightness comes on, he starts doing triple pirouettes like he's a figure skater, like Elvis Stoiko out there. I don't get those things. I thought he would learn from Four Nations. I was so disappointed. There's this guy that I thought, Four Nations came around. He got the biggest assist in his career with the game-winning goal on Four Nations. I thought, okay, this will smarten him up. This will be his breakout to not cry anymore. And yet here he is still crying. So I think it's better because I think that they talked about the passengers, they talked about the problems. They talked about good guys who would just emotionally break down and not really play up to the standards that they need to. And I think the problem's out, but now you got to prove it. That's the thing, right? It's one thing to talk about it, but you got to prove it now. So if you want
Mitch Marner, the funny thing is, came off his second best career playoff run with 13 points in 13 games and a -1. His next best was 14 points in 11 games and a +7. But you look at the rest of his playoffs, he's been the odd one where he's been a point. He's had 3 point per game playoff runs in his career, and they've been to the playoffs every year since 16. So it's been, I think, to say the Mitch Marner era, which is disappointing, is accurate because sure, he had these great regular seasons, but the playoffs, he was just okay. He was just
Matthews
okay.
is the same too. You can
Sorry?
make the same. You can, and I'm going to say this to be fairness. You could say the same thing about Austin Matthews too.
You could. I mean, in my opinion, you can't say it about William Nylander because William Nylander has had every playoff run. I can think of a huge William Nylander moment where he went out and Nylander, you look, this year he had 15 points in 13 games. Last year in 4 games with blurred vision, still put up 3 goals. The year before, 10 points in 11. The year before, 7 and 7. The year before, 8 and 7. The year before, 4 and 5. So Nylander's first 3 years in the playoffs were just okay. But after that, he's pretty much been a point per game or just under. So I think out of the core 4, you could actually argue William Nylander has been the best in the playoffs.
I would agree with that.
When it matters. And remember, too, Nylander's coming off a career year with 84 points, 82 games, 45 goals, and 39 assists. I think Nylander's going to get more ice time this year, and I think Nylander's production is going to go up. So everyone says where the 100 points are going to come from. Is it fair to say Nylander could hit 95 points this year? I think it is. If Nylander gets 95, so we'll say that's an extra 11 points. Marcelli, we'll say, gets 50 points. Okay, there's 61. Nicholas Waugh. Do you think Nicholas Waugh can get 30 points? Because I do.
So do I.
So now you're up to 91.
And
so you need to go to Joshua to get 9 points. And now you've tied Mitch Marner's contribution.
And another thing that everyone's forgetting, and I know Dan Moore keeps saying, we'll see. But there's not we'll see. It's the truth. Austin Matthews literally played the whole season with an injury. We don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But going into training camp, they literally said, and everyone's saying they didn't say, yes, they did say that no matter what happens this year, this is going to be a bad year for Austin Matthews. He's going to be playing a full year with an injury that we can't say.
And still had 78 points in 67 games.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So Matthews had one of the worst years in his career, still hit 40 goals, I'm pretty sure, and was playing.
Well, he had 33, but in 67, so he would have he would have been around 45 and 101 points if he played the whole year.
My mistake then.
And that's him injured. So is it fair to say, even then, Austin Matthews, is it fair to say he's going to have a bounce back year
I
and put
think
up
so.
110, 115 points?
If everything we're hearing is true and that injury, that year-long injury is finally actually healed and he's finally back to kind of where he feels comfortable again and not that nagging injury, and everyone's saying, well, why did they rest him? Again, I don't know for sure. I'm not no doctor. I'm just saying what
Dr.
they said.
Dashko.
All I know is they said that no, even if they gave him rest, even if they, let him go to Hawaii and drink pina coladas on the beach for a few months, it wouldn't have mattered. That injury was there for the year no matter what. And now the injury is up now. Now he actually feels back. He feels 100%. That injury is gone now. It's in the past. And Austin Matthews can get back to playing the way how Austin Matthews used to play.
Well, and that's the whole thing, right? And I know, you know what? I know the first thing anyone's going to say to me when we're saying all these things.
Well,
This is
we'll
a
see.
lot of what ifs. But it's always what if at the beginning of the year. For all you know, Austin Matthews could break his, I don't know, toe walking down the stairs. Mitch Marner could retire. He could decide to become, I don't know, a sandwich shop owner. You don't know. There's always what ifs in the world. But if, and I know we're saying what if, but if Matthews gets back, if William Nylander takes a step forward, if Matthew Nyes takes a step forward, if Dakota Joshua gets back to the way he played 2 years ago before he had cancer, which luckily that's all good. If Marcelli can get back to the way he was 2 years ago, if, Nick Robertson puts up 20 goals. We didn't even put in Nick Robertson in those calculations. Dan Matthews he didn't play every preseason game. And I've seen this comment from not just More4, but a lot of people.
He never
Neither did William Nylander. Neither did John Tavares. No one cares about preseason. That's like saying Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills is terrible because he didn't play a preseason game.
Here's one thing I don't get. So Matthews doesn't play more than 2 games in the preseason. Ever. He never has.
Nope.
Rookie career? Nope. Second year? Nope. Third year? Nope. So why is everyone surprised he played 2 preseason games?
Because he had an off year last year, right? So people are just looking for something. And let's be honest, Matthews had a bad playoffs, right? So this is the year Matthews has to step up. You know what? There's no more excuses. But before we go quickly, because we got to wrap the show up very soon because, the Leaf game's about to start. Lane, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to figure out who is going to win tonight between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. You still got 2 seconds. You got 1 second. Okay, it's all on you, bud. Who's winning?
The Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they're going to start their season off 1-0.
I'm also taking the Toronto Maple Leafs for this one. And now quickly, Toronto Blue Jays.
Oh, no.
You have Varland starting. It's a bullpen game. Savage is able to come out of the bullpen if you'd like. We're doing a post-game show. Dan has declared it in the comments. So we will be here after the Jays game. Lane, who are you taking in the Jays? Do you think the Yankees are tying this up and we're going back to the Dome? Or do you think the Jays are going back to the Dome to drink way too much champagne and over-celebrate one series victory? Because that's what they do in baseball.
Well, you said I had a crazy take, so you might want to put me full screen for this, because here's my crazy take that everyone's going to probably email us and say fire him. But, hey, I was right the first. Back in the playoffs last year, I said Game 3, I said the Leafs blew it and they're done because they blew that game to the Florida Panthers. They had them beat in the water. They blew it. They're done. And I will say once again, I think the Blue Jays have literally saw the Leafs and said, hold my beer. I think we're doing the same thing over again. That was the most disgraceful baseball game I've ever seen in my life. I don't care about any other game. I don't care about what you tell me about they were winning 10-1. That was a total embarrassment. You had every Yankee fan crying into their sandwich. You had a 6-1 lead in that building after Vladimir Guerrero hit a home run and got walked. You had so many opportunities that you had the game won, and you threw it away on a Terrible defensive errors, terrible pitching. You gave up when it was 6-6. You basically said you didn't care. You didn't even try to win that game. You went up, you didn't do your plate approach. You didn't swing at the right pitches. You guys basically cried the entire game. It was absolutely pathetic. So you Blue Jays do not deserve anything. You don't deserve Game 5 at the Rogers Center. You don't deserve tonight. You're not going to win tonight, and you're not going to make it to the next round. You guys are done. Done. I don't care what anyone has to say. It's over. Nothing is possible.
What?
The Jays are done. There's my crazy take.
Jays are winning tonight. Bullpen game. Varland to start, 2 innings. Your Savage is coming in, going to pitch 4 or 5, and they're going to get this done. I said from the beginning the Blue Jays in 4. Now, I thought we were going to see a split in Toronto. You didn't get a split in Toronto. The Jays are getting it done. And if they don't get it done, we'll have a Game 5 preview in MLB The Show to see who they think is going to win that game. Lane and Dan have been doing such a great job with those.
Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't able to get one. I don't think I could have done a game last night. Folks.
No, and Mr. Morfor had to go sleepy poo because he gets up very early in the morning.
I don't think I would have been sound-minded to a game last night.
But other quick news quickly before we wrap up. Matthias Ekholm signs a very team-friendly deal in Edmonton. That is on our story. Hearing Kyle Connor is re-signed with the Winnipeg Jets. Jack Eichel re-signed with the Vegas Golden Knights. We may have another very, very boring off-season again after this season in the NHL.
Yeah, it's possible.
Of course, we will have live shows coming up this weekend for the Canadian football. We will have a full NHL preview coming to a theater near you very, very soon. We've just been very busy. Thank you very much for watching the Streakers, the Analyst Desk. We really appreciate your support, and everything you do with us. We will be back for a post-game show of the Jays and the Yankees, so make sure you stay locked into all the social medias. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on the flip side. And until next time, always have a comfy chair while you're at the Analyst Desk. Bye-bye. Lane, wave.